Sidney Heron's return to Gray Sloan Memorial in Grey's Anatomy Season 21 disrupted the hospital's balance, but it also perfectly continues a forgotten Grey's Anatomy Season 3 story, improving upon it. After disappearing without fanfare in Grey's Anatomy Season 4, nobody at Seattle Grace really wondered what had happened to Dr. Sidney Heron. While the resident forced a connection with Christina and Izzy in Grey's Anatomy Seasons 2 and 3, earning the former's respect for how she stood her ground with Burke and the latter's confidence after her past convinced Izzy that she could understand, not many characters missed her. Sidney Heron was after all introduced to take over Bailey's interns for the time she was on maternity leave in Grey's Anatomy Season 2, and all interns missed Bailey after dealing with Heron's approach to heal with love. The biggest draw of Sidney Heron's return in Grey's Anatomy Season 21 was her 17-year absence from the medical drama, as nobody ever connected with her enough to enjoy her company. Just like magic, the new interns were hesitant to follow Sidney as their fearless leader in Grey's Anatomy Season 21's premiere, highlighting how a major Season 3 story can carry on. Sidney and Miranda's rivalry was a big Grey's Anatomy storyline in Season 3. They fought head-to-head for the chief resident position. While first introduced only as Bailey's sub in Grey's Anatomy Season 2, Sidney had a bigger role in Season 3. This was made possible by her peer counselor role that eventually helped Izzy get used to how her relationship with her job at Seattle Grace changed after Denny's death. However, Sidney's biggest story in Grey's Anatomy Season 3 was arguably her bitter rivalry with Bailey. The two went head-to-head for the chief resident position, which Miranda eventually earned, but Sidney's fake niceties always aggravated Bailey. This was especially true when Sidney went after the Denny Duquette Clinic, implying that Bailey managing it was a convenient ploy to earn points ahead of the chief resident nomination, and even more so when Sidney accused Miranda of the same when she worked hard to save Meredith's life after she drowned. Grey's Anatomy Season 3 solidly established Bailey and Heron as rivals, with the first direct and good-hearted, and the second willing to accuse her foes of the worst, albeit in a more seemingly polite approach that only felt fake to Miranda and Callie in Grey's Anatomy Season 3. Sidney Heron's return resurrects her rivalry with Miranda. Richard knew what he would have caused by hiring Sidney Heron back. The events of Grey's Anatomy Season 20's finale guaranteed Miranda was also fired, but it was Richard becoming interim chief that eventually put in motion the continuation of Bailey and Heron's rivalry in Grey's Anatomy Season 21. It's unclear whether Richard agreed or not with Catherine's move to fire his favorite students Miranda and Meredith, but he likely set up Sidney Heron as leader of the interns, knowing Miranda would have hated it for Sidney to destroy how she had shaped the new interns into surgeons. Indeed, Bailey and Heron's rivalry was even more cutting in Grey's Anatomy Season 21. It was especially visible in Heron's opposite approach with Bailey's interns, along with her inattention when their names were concerned in Grey's Anatomy Season 21's premiere, and Sidney's biting comments about Bailey being happy away from the OR, which sounded nice and appreciative but were actually uncomplimentary, like many of Sidney's remarks. Richard must have known about Sidney and Miranda's long-standing rivalry, making his choice to employ Sidney as Miranda's replacement. While Bailey already implemented behaviors that showed how she wished to return to Grey Sloan, it was seeing Sidney Heron teaching her interns the wrong way that eventually convinced her to speak up for herself at the end of Grey's Anatomy Season 21's premiere. Hearing Simone's pleas and helping her free the patient reminded Miranda what was important and what was at stake besides her bruised ego when Catherine fired her, how she wanted her interns to learn. How Sidney's first day at Grey Sloan already fired Bailey up thus proved her importance to Miranda's Grey's Anatomy Season 21 story. As Grey's Anatomy heads into its landmark 21st season, it's clear the show's long-running history and expansive character roster have left many stories unfinished. Among the forgotten plotlines that once held promise is the story of Dr. Sidney Heron, the quirky but earnest doctor who won fans over with her unusual methods and relentless optimism. Sidney's reintroduction in the new season will not only add a refreshing energy to Grey Sloan Memorial Hospital, but it also serves as the perfect opportunity to revive her Season 3 storyline, shedding light on her character's growth and the impact she can have on the new generation of doctors. Sidney's quirky beginnings. In Season 3, Dr. Sydney Heron made her debut as an unconventional doctor, often clashing with the more intense and competitive surgeons around her. Known for her kinder, gentler approach to medicine, Sydney brought a warm and hopeful demeanor to a hospital where ambition and drama often took precedence over empathy. Her tendency to meditate, give pep talks, and see the bright side in the darkest situations made her an outlier, but also a breath of fresh air. She was the embodiment of optimism, perhaps even to a fault, and her persona seemed at odds with the show's often dark and intense tone. Sydney's storyline in Season 3 explored the tensions between traditional, emotionally detached surgical methods and her holistic, empathetic approach. Her warmth initially clashed with Christina Yang, who was laser-focused on career advancement and disapproved of Sydney's soft touch. Their brief, yet memorable interactions showcased the division between surgical skill and bedside manner, setting Sydney up as a reminder that empathy is as important in medicine as clinical prowess. However, her story arc was left largely unfinished as she disappeared from the show, leaving fans wondering what became of her. A fresh start in Season 21. Grey's Anatomy Season 21 is shaping up to be a season of returns and reconciliations. With the hospital navigating a new era post-COVID-19 and grappling with systemic changes in the medical world, it's the perfect time for Sydney's return. In a season where themes of mental health, burnout, and compassion fatigue are expected to be prominent, Sydney's holistic perspective could offer the balance that's sorely needed. The challenges of modern medicine have intensified since she was last seen, making her approach to patient care even more relevant. Sydney's return is especially timely as the younger generation of surgeons faces pressures unlike any before. The competitive culture that once defined Grey Sloan is beginning to shift as doctors struggle to find purpose beyond promotions and awards. Sydney's character brings a needed focus on mental well-being and the importance of maintaining one's humanity in a profession that can be relentlessly demanding. Her influence could be a grounding force for these new doctors, encouraging them to look beyond surgical techniques and career ambitions to consider their patients as people. Revisiting Sydney's compassionate philosophy.